You know, when we think about the Cold War, we picture massive armies and nuclear missiles. But forget all that. The real war, the one that decided everything, was fought in the dark. It wasn't a war of tanks. It was a war of secrets, of whispers, and of information so small it could fit on the head of a pin. And that right there, that's the whole game. This wasn't about who had the bigger arsenal, it was about who knew the other side's next move. The true battlefield was totally invisible, and the currency wasn't bullets, it was information, often packed onto a tiny piece of microfilm. So to really get what was going on, you have to understand this fight was fundamentally lopsided. The US and the Soviet Union weren't just playing for opposite teams. They were playing two completely different games on the very same board, each with its own radical doctrine for how to win. Just look at this clash of philosophies. On one side, the Soviets were all about getting up close and personal. Their plan? Build a web of human spies, a human web, deep inside the enemy's most secret rooms. America's plan? Go big, go remote. Build a technological fortress so high up you can see and hear absolutely everything. It was penetration versus total observation. And let me tell you, in the early days, the Soviet way, man, it was terrifyingly effective. They had this massive advantage. As a closed-off totalitarian state, they could weaponize secrecy itself, recruiting spies who believed in their cause right in the heart of the West. And their communications? They were locked down with something that, on paper, is perfect. The one-time pad is a cryptographer's dream. You use a random key, you use it only once, and your message becomes mathematically impossible to crack. It was the foundation of their entire secret empire. But they committed the one unforgivable sin in cryptography. In the heat of World War II, their code clerks got sloppy. They took a shortcut. They started reusing their one-time keys. And that fatal error, that mathematical sin, gave American codebreakers one tiny thread to pull on. And the result of pulling that thread? Project Venona. For years, American codebreakers worked, painstakingly putting the pieces together. They eventually cracked over 3,000 secret messages. And what they found? It was almost too shocking to believe. The sheer scale of the Soviet spy network was just staggering. Venona proved the enemy wasn't at the gates. They were already in the house. They were inside the Manhattan Project, literally stealing the secrets to the atomic bomb. They had the Cambridge Five, a ring of spies at the very top of British intelligence. They were everywhere, and for a while there, it looked like the Soviet human web had won. Decisively. But America's response was already taking shape. See, if you can't win the war on the ground, in the dark alleys and secret meetings, what do? You change the battlefield. You move it from the streets of Berlin to the cold, silent emptiness of space. This was the birth of a new doctrine, Imagery Intelligence, or IMINT. But don't think of this as just taking pictures. No, this was a kind of technological god complex. It was the wild, audacious idea that you could build an eye in the sky so powerful that all the walls, all the borders of a totalitarian state would become completely meaningless. And the peak of this whole idea? Project Corona. I mean, look at this mission profile. It's pure Hollywood. You launch a satellite into orbit, you snap pictures of the most secret places on the planet, you drop the film back to Earth, and then you literally catch the canister in mid-air with a plane. I mean, come on. The operational audacity is just off the charts. But here's the thing. All the technology in the world wasn't going to be enough. At the one moment when humanity stared right into the nuclear abyss, that high-tech fortress, it needed a human key. And that key was a man named Oleg Penkovsky, a Soviet colonel who was terrified by how reckless his own leaders were becoming. And this is where it all came together, in the perfect fusion of man and machine. Grainy spy plane photos showed missile sites going up in Cuba. But it was Penkovsky's intelligence, the actual technical manuals, the missile specs, that confirmed exactly what they were and what they could do. It was that combination that gave President Kennedy the absolute certainty he needed to face down Khrushchev and pull the world back from the brink. But that reliance on people, man, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because while a hero like Penkovsky could save the world, a single traitor inside America's own intelligence community could bring the entire system crashing down. And the cost of that kind of failure is always measured in human lives. For just $2.5 million, a CIA officer named Aldrich Ames sold out his country. It's almost sickeningly cheap when you stop and think about the absolute catastrophic damage he caused to the very networks America had spent decades building. The consequences were just devastating. Decades of work gone. The entire network of agents inside the Soviet Union completely wiped out, and at least 10 top-level sources, people like Penkovsky who risked everything, were caught and executed. It was a total system collapse, all because of one man's greed. So after all the betrayals, all the breakthroughs, the incredible triumphs, and the devastating tragedies, who actually won this silent war? Well, the final verdict? It lies back in that fundamental asymmetry of the whole conflict. Think about it like this. The Soviet goal was to steal pages from America's playbook, a blueprint here, a political plan there. Incredibly difficult, but as Aldrich Ames proved, not impossible. But America's goal was on a whole other level. It was to map the entire Soviet war machine, from top to bottom. And that was a secret the Soviets just couldn't hide. The final verdict was crystal clear. A spy can be caught, disinformation can be planted, walls can be built, but you cannot hide your missile silos, your submarine pens, your tank factories from an unblinking satellite passing silently overhead. In the end, America's technological and economic power created an intelligence advantage that was simply insurmountable. So in the end, this silent war was won, not with weapons, but with information. But it leaves us with one final chilling question, doesn't it? When heroes and traitors have no faces, and the biggest battles are fought in secret archives and the quiet of outer space, how on earth do you even begin to measure the cost of victory?